Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Anomalian. I am Steven Solo. Welcome. Here's a story submitted by Anomalian reader, Sleepy Sniper. This story is entitled, Why Did They Choose Me? My True Ghost Story. I know that in this style of writing, my story might seem like total BS, but this really all did happen and still is happening. It's ruining my mind and my mental state, and I'm becoming more and more paranoid with each passing day. I hope none of you ever have to experience anything quite like this in your life, ever. So for as long as I can remember, I've been around ghost spirits in my everyday life. Why? I don't know. But out of everyone in my family, I've had the most paranormal encounters, although we each have our fair share of encounters. But nowadays, it seems as if I'm the only one who is still seeing entities, and I have no idea why. So let's go to the beginning where things all started to happen. I was about 3 years old when my parents started to notice weird things. According to them, I would have these night terrors all the time that would scare me shitless. And they were all about some sort of weird entity. Not one night terror didn't include this entity. I can vaguely remember what it looked like. I was too young to remember it at all, but it was usually a dark, shadowy figure with red glowing eyes. Sounds like your average demon or spirit, right? Well, this was no regular entity. Not long after I saw it in my dreams, maybe about 2 or 3 years after, I actually started to see it in real life. What I thought was only something that existed in my mind was about to get a whole lot realer. I don't recall ever seeing this entity during the day, but I sure did see a lot of it during the night. Although it never moved or made a noise, it stared me down with its red eyes. After we moved out of the house when I was about 6, we moved into another one, which was a bit newer. And what do you know? I stopped seeing it after a while. But that was not the last of the entity. It came back as an even more terrifying thing. Now, I have no idea if this was the same sort of entity that stalked me before, but it certainly seemed like it. This form of the entity took its time in introducing itself to me, but it did in the same manner as before. I was about 8.5 when it started to manifest in my dreams, but this time, it did not show itself fully. I would see a shadow of it near the end of my dream, or when I was about to wake up screaming, and it would always mumble something that I could not comprehend. After many dreams like this, it decided to take it a step further when I had my false awakening. In this false awakening, I woke up in my bed and looked around my room and saw nothing, but I could hear loud footsteps approaching from down the hall. I couldn't move or speak, and the footsteps were getting closer and closer. All of a sudden, the footsteps stopped, and I saw a shadowy figure wearing a trench coat standing in my doorway. There were no details to it other than the fact that it looked like a human being. Once again, it mumbled something I couldn't hear, before morphing into some sort of cloud of darkness and shooting towards me. At that point, I woke up, or so I thought. I had another dream where almost the exact same thing happened, and then I woke up for real. I didn't sleep easy for weeks after that. But luckily, things took a turn for the better. After that incident, the entity left and did not come back to me for quite a while. A couple years later, we had moved into another house in the sketchy side of town since money was tight at the time. But ever since day one, I had the feeling that something about this house was wrong. I would not even dare to go down into the basement. And to make everything worse, a man was murdered down in the corner of our block, about 3 houses away from ours. I thought nothing of it at first, but I began to notice something about that spot whenever I was standing there getting ready to cross the road to go into the park. That spot was always cold, even in the blazing hot summer weather. And to make things even stranger, I was the only one who could feel it. None of my sisters could, not even my parents. I was the only one who could feel the coldness of that spot. Needless to say, I avoided it all the time shortly after. Now, about the house. This house was basically the equivalent of hell. For me anyways. I felt like I was being watched 24/7 by something inside of the house. Rooms would inexplicably turn warmer or colder when I walked into them. I heard my name called more than once while home alone. It only ever happened when I was home alone too. I would constantly see strange shadows that seemed to morph or resemble a person, and I would see apparitions from time to time. None of these ever happened to my other family members, except for 2 of my sisters who claimed to see apparitions a lot. The most common apparition that I saw was that of a little boy about 7 or 8 years old. He freaked me out the most because he would always appear to be staring at you. Although he had no eyes, it looked as if they had been gouged out with a knife. He appeared constantly in your path or in places where you would spot him for a second, and then he would disappear. The other apparition was of a little girl. Fitting, huh? Now, I only saw her once, but she was the reason I didn't want to go back downstairs ever again. I was putting something in the deep freezer when, out of the corner of my eye, I saw someone under the stairwell. Assuming it was a little boy, I paid no attention. He seemed to be friendly despite his disturbing appearance. But then, I noticed that this entity was not disappearing like the little boy always did. So I looked up and saw what looked like a little girl, about 5 or 6 years old, in old-timely clothes, sitting there, staring at me. I didn't remember much after that, since I booked out of the room and up the stairs. The next thing I want to talk about is the fact that I had my name called more than once by something not human. But whatever was calling my name was quite possibly the most sinister thing I've ever met. It almost seemed like the devil himself was calling me, but it did not sound like the devil. It imitated the sound of my mother's voice. Usually, it would call my name, "Baby, come out of the room," and I would go out of my room only to find myself completely alone. I would look around a little just to see if anyone was indeed there, but there never would be. But the most unsettling part about this was that after I looked around, I could hear heavy footsteps coming up from the basement, and this happened every time. All these events, except for the little girl, would happen to me on a daily basis and never ceased. But after my parents noticed my declining mental state, they decided it was time to move once again. So a few years later, we moved to the house in which I am currently typing this out. My mental state turned back to normal, and I was happier than ever now that these things have stopped happening to me. But things are getting weird again, and it's all just started. For the first time in about 3+ years, I saw my first apparition. It was about last week. I got home from school and stepped in the back door. I took off my backpack and looked up just in time to see a pair of what seemed like at the time disembodied legs rushing into the living room. Figuring it was my mom's boyfriend, I thought nothing of it until I realized I was home alone. I hid in my room for the rest of the day and refused to come out after that. I don't want all of this to happen again, as I've already been traumatized from past events, but it's almost as if these entities won't leave me alone. None of my family members report anything out of the ordinary about this house, but I can just tell that there's something there, something that won't leave me alone.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the first ever Anomalian podcast. I am Steven Solo, but you can call me Steve for short. With me, I have my trusty co-host, my partner in life, non-sexually, Ron Stone. You can call him Ron. How you doing, Ron?
What's up? All right. How you doing, Steve?
Oh, you know how it is, man. We got to get this show off the ground and talk about some weird, crazy stuff.
Man, it is some weird, crazy stuff.
A disclaimer, though, that a lot of the research that we've been doing about the paranormal and conspiracy theories and whatnot, it's stuff that we have read and learned about. Anyways, for the most part, again, my name is Steven Solo. I've been in the radio broadcasting industry for over 15 years, certified voice narrator, voice actor, post-production expert, And Ron Stone, who happens to be a very good friend of mine. We actually have a few podcasts together. He's a philanthropist, a businessman, a family man, and an inspiration to all of us.
Oh, I thank you. How sweet of you.
Are you a paranormal believer? Do you believe in stuff like this? This is just for our listeners who don't know that much about us. Like I said, this is a podcast that's based on the paranormal. Is the paranormal something that interests you, Ron Stone?
Oh, yes, definitely. Because, heard stories from different people and like our elders, especially from our elders, from Philippines to Hawaii. We hear about these things, and I don't think our elderlies won't lie to us.
Yeah, I don't think so either. I think a lot of these superstitions that were passed down from generations to generation actually hold some truth in the whole lore of paranormal stuff. I mean, for the most part, we're gonna keep this first episode a little bit lighthearted, and then later on, as we progress within the shows, we're gonna go deeper and deeper into the rabbit hole. But for the most part, like I said, this is just getting to know myself and Ron Stone, and what we aim to do for the show. Like, we plan to have guests that are experts in their certain fields of the paranormal, such as UFOs, Sasquatch, conspiracy theories, and the paranormal in general. But like I said, this is going to be lighthearted. This topic today is going to be the video that you just saw, which I created. By the way, I'm a horrible video editor, and it's all about shadow people and entities and stuff like that. So have you had any experiences? You're going to hear Ron Stone a lot, by the way, throughout this the podcast and stuff like that. What's your take on shadow people?
Ooh.
As a matter of fact, I don't mean to cut you off. Right before we started the show, you were kind of hesitant about talking about it because you were afraid that you would be haunted. Is that right?
Yes, because I don't really talk about these things and stuff, because some people, they say, oh yeah, if you believe it, then it'll come true. So that was kind of a trip. And then by doing some research about the shadow people and how it has its evil ways and good ways, and people have different theories about it. Yes,
right.
They do. But I do want to learn more. And
a lot of the things about that I've researched are it's either some sort of thing from a different parallel universe that sort of comes in, or it could be your opposite mirror. It could be the evil side of you. And there's a lot of ways to go about it. I mean, there's no one real way to explain what a shadow person or what a black-eyed child is. That's another thing on its own. So this story that I read right before we got into the podcast, is about a gentleman who sent in his account of shadow people and black-eyed children.
Oh, wow.
Through the Anomaly and website, excuse me. And that is basically who's going to be sponsoring the podcast, is anomalyan.com. So, like I said, I don't actually know what these things are, but I've experienced a few things that are pretty eerie.
Wow.
Have you ever had something called sleep paralysis?
Sleep paralysis. That means when you can't sleep?
No, it's like you go to sleep, right? But then you wake up, you're awake, but you're actually still asleep, and you're stuck. You can't breathe.
Oh, that's what it means.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you ever experienced that?
Oh, yes.
Have you seen anything?
I haven't, but I had those visions where I'm like walking in my sleep and stuff.
Yeah.
But I haven't seen nothing eerie or nothing like that.
Well, apparently during sleep paralysis is when these accounts actually happen, of where people can actually see the paranormal, because the other side likes to play with you when you can't do anything to stop it. Like, for example, I have these every now and again, where I would fall asleep and then I'd wake up thinking I was awake and I'd see everything around me, but I can't move, I can't scream, I can't talk. You never had that?
Oh, that part, yes. Where you're trying to struggle, but you can't move. You're like, oh, I'm stuck. Yeah. And then after that, it's like you wake up and then you're like loss of breath and everything like that.
Yeah.
Kind of like the same.
It's the exact same thing. Nobody could really like explain why you see eerie things. It just happens. Like my account is, not in the recent, but I see things that aren't there. Like that I see shadow people when I'm in that state, in that paralyzed sleep.
Oh, wow.
So it happens a lot. It happens to a lot of people, and a lot of people have seen them in these sort of states, and a lot of people have seen them from the corner of their eye, and nobody really understands or knows what these things are.
So when you see them, like what type of form are they in?
They're just a dark figure, like a black shadow is what I could say. Sometimes you could see the red eyes. Sometimes you just see a shadow. And you look at it because it's dark. When you go to sleep, it's dark. You don't see anything, but your night vision adjusts, and basically during this sleep paralysis, you could see that there's something there, something standing by your bed.
Well, so what would you think would it be like different? Would you think it would be spirits, or do you think it's
definitely something of that nature? It's got to be something of that nature, because if you see, if it's a ghost or a spirit or a demon, they're kind of within the same.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Same playing field. So here's a theory of mine. I actually think that these are entities from a parallel universe that's here. As a matter of fact, there's, in the Islam religion, they talk about a group of people that God made, or Allah made. They're called the jinn. Have you heard of those?
The jinn, no.
Okay, so what the jinn are is that, so when God, according to the Islam faith, God created angels from light, and then he created the jinn out of fire, and then he created us.
Oh.
So the jinn are actually the genie.
Oh.
That's where they derive from.
Okay.
So according to it's just follow me here. You're I know Ron's like, what the heck? But the jinn actually live on the same plane, or the same plane as us. The only thing is we can't see them. They could see us, and they're created by smokeless fire. So if you call on a jinn's name, if you summon them, they grant you 3 wishes. That's where the whole 3 wishes things.
Uh-huh.
But it's very dangerous. It's a very dangerous practice. It's a practice that nobody should do. And there are ways to do this. And a lot of times people think that the rich people, these sports guys or singers, they actually requested for help. They requested help from these quote unquote jinn, So there are ways to do it. It's almost very satanic as well.
It's like selling your soul.
Yeah.
Like kind of like that, huh?
Right.
Oh,
right.
wow.
That's why how you could get some people that really don't deserve all that money and power, but then all of a sudden they're there. They got this money.
Yeah. I thought that was the Illuminati or something like
that. There's also the aspect of the Illuminati. There's also the Illuminati is almost like ritualistic in a sort of way. The way that they gain their power is almost through certain. It's almost the same. They do rituals and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Would you sell your soul to have $1 trillion, Ron?
No, I'm good. I'll just do it the hard way and hope that I make $1 trillion.
Well, it's really tempting, It
is. It's really tempting.
What's your you don't, everybody has a price for their soul. You don't have a price?
Ooh. It'd be priceless. So it'll be limitless fundings.
For generations.
For generations.
Wow.
A never-ending stack of money.
There you go. See, that's the thing about it is you see these people, throughout the media. Hollywood is so weird.
Mm-hmm.
All this pedophilia going on, the Jeffrey Epstein thing, the Weinstein thing, and the Epstein thing. And it makes you honestly look at this side of entertainment. Like there's something hidden.
Like Tom Cruise, I heard that he was part of like a
Scientology.
There we go. Yep.
Yeah. And that's also almost like a cult,
Yeah.
So a lot of it it's just weird thing. So anyways, correlating back to what the shadow people are, I think possibly that they could be jinn, or they could be these entities that are not of our three-dimensional plane. Here, let me explain something to you real quick. So us as physical beings, we see in three dimensions.
Mm-hmm.
We see height, depth, and width. But there is a space in between spaces that our senses cannot see.
Oh.
Okay, so it's kind of like an ant. An ant really doesn't have the perception as us. So when we step on the ground and we see, what do you think an ant experiences? They don't understand what they're looking at, right?
No.
Yeah, because they see this foot, right? So imagine us as being ants, and these jinns or entities are like us. So we're ants and they're like us. Our senses cannot perceive this. So instead, what we're looking at is a shadow people. Our minds try to define what it is that we're looking at, but that's not really what we're seeing.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Yeah, because when I was doing some research, it was like, I heard some people say like shadow people is a defense mechanism. Have you heard something like that?
Yeah, it's a possibility. That side that you're talking about is more of the practical Sigrid Freud or Freudian theory of why we see shadow people. But you know, it's the negative opposite polar side of us. You know.
Wow. Okay. And then I also heard that's how they came out with Slender Man.
Yeah.
And then because there was this guy from like the 19th century that would like creep up to people's homes and then peek in their window, and it was Slender Man. And then he used to like terrorize kids and mothers and all that stuff.
Right.
That's how they got the name Slender Man. Did you hear about that?
Yeah.
One?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Wow.
I'm pretty much well versed. Like I'm pretty much well versed in this aspect. Like I've read about everything.
Cool. Yeah, it's interesting stuff over here.
And you know what? It's like it's just a rabbit hole that goes deeper and deeper. And if you get involved, I mean, if you start having an interest in this certain subject of the paranormal, it leads to another thing and another thing and another thing and another thing. And before you know it, you're going like, how did I get here? You know?
Yeah, because I know there's some stuff that the government doesn't want us to know about either.
There's a lot of stuff.
You know?
There's even, I think this is going to be a future topic that we're going to talk about. It's the Jeffrey Epstein suicide. And if whether or not, you know, like the kind of stuff that he was into, pedophilia, blackmailing, you know, the dark arts and all of this stuff is a whole show on its own. It's almost, I would have to say it's an hour worth of content and talking points about Jeffrey Epstein. Yeah. That probably will do something on that in the future.
So where they don't know what happened or anything like that. I seen some stuff like people would just all of a sudden pass away. They wouldn't have no health problems or nothing like that. Just end up passing away.
Right.
Does that have something to do with all that stuff?
Possibility. It's entirely possible though that when you know, like when you pass away, you just pass away from just whatever. You don't need a cause. It's just your time, you know?
Yeah.
What do you believe when we die, Ron? I know that you're a believer of God.
Yeah. Well, my thing is like, okay, I think we just, I don't know, man. I just see that the heaven and hell, like what we always were told about. Nice bright day.
Golden roads.
I don't know about the golden road.
And the golden gates and
I
stuff.
was like, okay.
That's what heaven is to you. What do you think hell?
Yeah, see, hell, that one is scary. All I see is just like flames and heat and all kinds of demons and scary stuff.
There's an interesting thought experiment where you create your heaven or hell when you die. Whatever it is that is in your mind, the last minute of your last breath is something that you create. So, I mean, you could be an evil person, but if you're like thinking when you die, like I belong to be in heaven. That's possibly what the person would experience.
Yeah. See, that would be cool to interview somebody that has like passed away for like a couple seconds or something like that, huh? Mm-hmm. And then seeing what they seen while they went under. It's weird. It's a weird subject to talk about. That's some crazy stuff right there.
Yeah. But anyways, like I said, we're just starting this whole show. We're kind of at our mark right now. So I just want to, advise everybody to like, subscribe, and switch on that notification so you guys can be informed when we release more podcasts and more videos for Anomaly. And I don't know, any final thoughts, Ron Stone?
Oh man, these topics are great. Love to learn about it more, and hopefully our listeners out there want to join in and learn more stuff also.
Exactly. And if you want to be a guest on the show, if you have any kind of say expertise in one certain field of the paranormal, email us at info@anomalian.com, and we would love to have you on the show. If you're located within the Las Vegas, Nevada area and you want to come on the show live, you could do so as well, because that's where Ron Stone and I are located. But also, if you're not from this area, we can interview you through Skype or any other kind of medium where we can get in contact with you.
Yes, sir.
Any more final thoughts on your research, Ron Stone?
Nope, that's it. I'm going to do more research so we can have more things to talk about.
There you go. All right, folks, this is Steven Solo with me,
Ron Stone.
Laters.
Later.